Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let them have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. Oh, look at this silly grin I have on my face today. I have the honor and pleasure of interviewing for the American listeners, my high school prom date, and for my Aussie listeners, my year 12 formal partner, Charles Hardman, who is a mentor, coach, advisor, speaker, and author of his book, called Leadership is Not Leadership. He's worked with all sorts of businesses across all sorts of industries, and he has a master's in professional education and training, as well as a diploma in organizational psychology. Now, park all that for a minute. I just want to say that you are extremely important to me, number one. Number two, Charles, you have been such a mentor and reflective mirror. You hold up the mirror to me as good as anyone in my orbit. And I just want to pay a huge amount of gratitude. So welcome to the show, Charles.
Geez, thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Emma. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for those beautiful words. God, starting a podcast choked up is probably not the best way to go, but thank you. And may also reciprocate. Who knew, I won't say how many years ago because that'll reveal our age. Also, you being one of the most important people in my life. So thank you again.
Well, on that note, we have to kick it off with the book, because for those of you who are interested, just in the title alone, let's go there straight away, because I just want to hit that one on the head. I love it every time we speak that I do often have an insight, or you open up my thinking to this word, antony. Let me just check in. Did I pronounce it correctly?
I think antinomy is right. I've heard it said antinomy, but let's stick with antinomy.
Antinomy. Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So for those who haven't heard it before, antinomy is when opposing ideas can be true at the same time. Now, my dad has always spoke about this concept in his being a scientist with his background. And I have to ask you, because to me, also, just so everyone knows, the book resonates so much. And when I read that was the first thing that stumped me. And I like it when books do that. I like it when books question my thinking, and even me questioning the title. What do you mean leadership is not leadership, Charles? What are you doing to me right here, right now? So let's go there first. Talk to me about this concept as it relates to the title, as well as the very last line in the actual book, which of course is none of this is easy, and all of it is when you're talking about practicing effective leadership. And you said I had to finish this book with an antony. So go there first. Talk us through the title and why.
Yeah, okay, that's a huge question. It might take us the full podcast to get through the answers. Leadership has become such a ubiquitous term, right? Anyone who is in an organisation, whether it be workplace, sporting, political, education, they're given the title leader very, very quickly. And that's not to discount their knowledge or their skills or any of those sort of things. It might absolutely be warranted. But I think with the word leadership comes a whole heap of expectations based on who you are, who you're leading, what their views are on that. I've found that during my career, that's actually become problematic. The word has become problematic. And so I often find myself getting caught up in in the semantics of things. And when I do, I just go back to pure definitions. And whether that's a dictionary or whatever, but I'll try not to make it up. And with leadership, I think quite often what people mean is management or supervisor or senior, someone who's senior at their role. And for whatever reason, during the past, let's call it 15 years, but really accelerated during the last 5, people are afraid to use any other word other than leader. But when you get back to the actual dictionary definition of leadership and what that means, that's also problematic because it isn't as clear as it could be because it's so subjective. And I guess that's the nature of the book, that leadership is subjective, and it's subjective from the person being led, not from the person doing the leading. And there's a theme definitely during at least the first half of the book that I just sort of keep going over that and reiterating that there is no leadership if the person being led doesn't feel it. All right. So, yeah, the idea that leadership called leadership is not leadership is, it aims to sort of break someone's thinking immediately from the outset to say, well, what is it that I'm doing then? Like, I think it's called leadership, but is it? And again, it's a little section in the book. It actually, I'd love to take credit for the title and the idea, but it's actually from Taoist philosophy, so ancient philosophy that goes Tao called Tao is not Tao, or the path called the path is not the path. And it's a philosophical premise that, when you think you're doing everything right, or that you're on the right path, you're not. And as soon as you name it, it ceases to exist. So it's a great little brain teaser to say, okay, well, what is it? And just because someone has a title doesn't necessarily make it so, I guess is what I'm trying to do there.
Yeah.
So that's, and then that leads into the antinomy idea that two things can be true at the same time. And just to answer that, my favourite, it's actually a little diagram that I'm sure you've seen and your listeners have seen of two people, just stick people, standing on either side, and they're pointing at the ground. And on the ground, one has the number 6 showing at them, but the other one facing opposite them sees the number 9. And so one's going, that's a number 9. The other one's going, no, it's a number 6. And both of those things are true depending on where you're standing, right? And so I saw that diagram, I don't know, maybe when I was 15 or 16, but it was so great to see something visual, picture tells 1,000 words, that actually showed two things to be absolutely true at the same time based on where someone was standing.
I think this whole episode will be about the book because it's so impactful. It's just it's absolute gold dust, and you even just talk about like what is leadership and what is not, and that in itself, another antinomy, so to speak. Without leadership, well, let me rephrase that. You have to have followers, and those followers can see things either through the lens cap of number 6 or number 9. It doesn't matter through how they follow you, but you won't be a leader without followship.
Yep.
That is a real through line in the first section of the book. Tell me more.
Yep. Yeah. Again, I think the idea here is that, and not to repeat something I said earlier, but titles mean very little.
Yep.
And titles won't give you respect or trust or any of those things that you require to be a leader or to have followers. All of that needs to be earned. And if it is given to you up front, because I am speaking for myself, I'm the person, when I meet someone, they will have automatic 100% trust and 100% respect. So that's my starting point. And then based on their behaviour, that either remains in place or whittles down. So again, different people do it different ways. Some followers will want their leader to earn their trust and respect. Again, that's absolutely fine. But I guess that idea of leaders only being effective if they have followers, if you take the words leader and follower out of that, what are you left with, right? You're just left with people. You're left with human beings. I guess a part of the book, and especially towards the end, without giving the full ending away, is how do human beings relate well to each other? You know, what are the skills or what are the practices required for good and good subjective, for effective relationships to exist? I think, you know, for people that do read this book, and it is just it's a quick one, it's only a 1 hour read or thereabouts. If you get to the end of it and you think, oh, you know, that was good or that wasn't good, or I've learned something or I haven't learned something. The essence of the book is just be an effective human being. Like just be, you know, kind, caring, inquisitive. You know, there's a word equanimity that keeps appearing in the book as well, and not by accident, of course. So what are the traits or what are the actions of effective people or effective humans? You know, compassion, empathy, all those sort of things. And if you concentrate on those, I think leadership and followership will naturally happen. Contrary to that, I think people that go out and want to be a great leader, you know, I'm going to be a super fantastic leader today, that can fall apart real quick depending on what your people are going through today. They may not be in the mood to be a good follower today, right? So what does that look like? What does that mean? And that comes back to being a good human again, you know, again, being inquisitive. What's going on for you today? You know, what's happening? How can I help, you know, ease the burden, or what do you need? What do you need today to be the best you can be?
Yeah, because leadership has no ego.
It's another part. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think if people that do tie leadership to ego, not tie, but people who allow their leadership to be ego driven, and this is a absolute personal belief, will not be effective leaders, right? Because their ego will actually work against them and their aims. When you're in protection mode, so when you're protecting yourself, it's very, very difficult to protect others.
Yep.
Right. So, you know, you're the person running away from the lion and you just want to be faster than the person that's also running away from the lion, so you don't get eaten. So, yeah, I think protecting yourself and protecting your ego specifically is really problematic for leadership.
Let's go to this bit here. Leadership is about people and management is about processes and everything else.
Yep.
Leadership zooms out to take the widest possible view, whereas management zooms in to take the narrowest. I think this is something so simple, yet in my Leader as Coach workshop, I always spend time on what is the difference between management, mentoring, coaching, and sports coaching. And I think a leader sits in the mentoring and coaching. And a sports coach can be a great leader as well. And management is about processes and everything else. I mean, this was a huge thing that I never really thought about. It makes total sense when I read it. Talk to me about leadership is not management, and talk to me about this whole concept of whatever you think leadership is before reading this book. I honestly feel like you should just empty the glass. Like, you know, like the glass is there and it's full of water. Whatever you think you know about leadership, like just drink it and just have that blank lens through which to absorb this little gold nugget. Thoughts?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And before we talk about leadership and management, you've touched on a extremely, I think, important part, and something that's really close to my belief system and what I believe with relation to not just leadership but life, and that is the ability to unlearn. Like, learning's a skill. Being able to learn is a skill. Being able to teach is a skill. But there's another skill at play that we don't talk about, and that's unlearning. So to be able to learn something new, especially in adult life, you also require the ability to unlearn the way you thought it was or the way you used to do it. And anyone, and this comes back to ego, anyone that holds on to their beliefs or practices whilst trying to learn something new is only ever looking to punch holes in the something new so that they can keep what they already have, right? And that's an ego protection mechanism again, because you know, how many people do you meet in day-to-day life, or even if you watch the TV, how many people do you meet that can easily say, hey, you know what, you've taught me something today. That's great. You know, the way I was doing it wasn't necessarily the right way. Like, you don't have to use the W word, like I was wrong. You can. But the ability to, like you said, empty the glass or clear the tablet, erase the board and start from scratch, that's a huge skill.
Yep.
Right? To be able to do that. And sometimes it's just better done in private, so that you don't have to acknowledge all the things to other people. And that's one of the great things about being able to read a book, whether it's this one or your book. Just park everything you think read it afresh and work out what you want to do with that information. But if you're fighting the information every step of the way and you don't know why you're fighting it, then that's a whole other journey that people might need to go on. But back to your point about management and leadership. Look, I'll start in a really sort of pragmatic and easy way. If management and leadership are the same thing, we'd only have one word for it. All right? Yep. So in my opinion, they are different things, which is why we call them management leadership. This is a concept where I don't believe I learnt this. I think I created it quite early on in my career when I was helping other people navigate management and leadership and keeping them separate with separate sets of skills or practices. Because people, I'll say all, but we'll call it 99.99% of leaders are managers, but 99.99% of leaders are managers and 99% of managers are leaders, right? So the people doing the roles are always wearing two hats. And that's always going to be the way it is. But I think when you are wearing two hats, especially at the same time, it's difficult to know what you're trying to do and when. And the point that, I sort of make in the book is that if you are trying to do both management and leadership at the same time, you will be ineffective. So concentrate on one and then the other and do it sequentially. And you can bounce around between the two. That's absolutely okay. But know which one you're doing and when. And I guess that leads me into, well, to do that, you need to have a definition of management and leadership. So the easiest way for me to divvy those up was leadership is purely about people, nothing more, nothing less. And management is about processes that help support those people. Again, this is my pragmatic way of just getting back to definitions and then focusing in on those, zooming in on those, and trying to help people or help leaders just differentiate the two practices for themselves.
Another way to differentiate it, which is what you sort of do it towards the end of the book, is, or the example that I love that you give is about consistency of fairness as it relates to pay or to time off, etc.
Yep.
And leadership is extremely individualized. So what on a day-to-day basis, how you treat one person is going to be different to the next, especially if you want to bring out the best in the team. So does that resonate, that example?
Oh, look, absolutely. And it's another I think theme through the pages for your listeners and for the readers. There is a separate section on management in the book, even though it's a leadership book. There is a section on management because, again, that helps differentiate the practices associated with one and the other. The practices associated with management and zooming in are absolutely fairness and consistency. So, between people times, days, situations, all those things, management practices need to be consistent and fair, right? There's just no other way to be effective unless you're being consistent and fair. However, with leadership, absolutely does need to be individualized. And what suits one person on one day may not suit them the next day, or may not suit another person in a different situation. So to try and be consistent in leadership is, in a way, shooting yourself in the foot, because it's next to impossible. But you absolutely need to be consistent in your management of the teams. And look, again, for everyone out there, the example that I like using in this space is about a team member who is needing to be absent a lot, for whatever reason, right? They're, whether it's sickness or personal reasons, they're just not coming into work, and they're not calling, they're not doing the things that you'd expect them to do, and they're not doing their job because they're not around. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily common, but I think it's an example that a lot of people, especially in leadership or management roles, can relate to. In these situations, what I say, or where I come from, is leadership takes a people-centric view first. So having that human conversation, what's going on? Like, do you want to tell me? If you don't want to tell me, how can I best support you through this? What do you need? Do you need, an extended bit of time off? Are you coming to work because it's a distraction, from whatever's going on in your personal life? Like, what's going on here? And so it's just a human conversation between two people, and that's leadership, right? That's leadership in a nutshell. We're not talking about, hey, you don't have any sick leave left, or have you submitted your right forms, or where's your doctor's certificate, or any of those sort of things. However, that is management. So do all the leadership stuff first, make sure you're satisfied, make sure the person that you're leading is satisfied, and then switch hats. Go, okay, thanks for all of that information. Here's what we're going to do. This is the plan. However, I still need you to lodge all of this stuff into the system. Please note, you've taken 15 days this year. You've only got a 10-day allowance. The rest of any of the leave that you take is going to be unpaid. Then you might switch hats back to leadership and go, hey, you know what? We might be able to use some of your annual leave for that, or your holiday vacation leave, but let's talk about that. Switch your hats back to management, and just know which one you're doing well. But what, in that particular example, and I've seen this, time and again, a person dealing with that tries to wear two hats at once, and inevitably it fails, because how can you show empathy while you're telling someone they're not going to get paid and they need to go to a doctor to get a certificate? Right? Because that sounds like, I don't trust you. And then in the other hand, he's saying, oh, look, I feel really sorry for your situation. I'm really sorry this is happening with your grandmother, or whatever it is. And it's like, guys, just take a step back here and watch what's going on. This isn't working. So, yeah, the idea of switching hats, really, really important.
And of course, none of this is easy, and none of it is fast, and none of it is efficient, as, again, all quotes, paraphrasing out of your book, that it takes time, because leadership is followship, and all leaders are followers, and none of us exist alone at the top of our tree. Whether we like it or not, we are all led by others. It pays to understand the characteristics which make a follower effective. The number one characteristic of an effective follower is the ability to listen. So, I am in your fan club. Yes, I apologize in advance, everybody. My listeners are probably sick of me. On this podcast, I talk all the time about listening, deep level listening, effective listening. In my Emerging Leaders program, it's all we're talking about this entire month is listening, so that you can understand what's important to the follower in order to lead them, right? So what's a practical tool to help somebody improve their deep level listening skills? Because you're a master listener.
I'll start with a bit of get out of jail free card. To apply this to everybody and expect that it'll make you a good listener, maybe not. I don't know. But again, if you just focus in on a person or the person that you're having a conversation with and really focus in on that person, you could even ask them, and these are the sort of questions we're afraid to ask, and that is, Emma, what do you need from me to show that I'm hearing you or that I'm listening to this conversation? Like, is there anything in particular that you need from me so I can demonstrate that I'm really hearing you here, right? It's a simple question. People are afraid to ask it because it's like, well, that I should know, right? And being the leader of you, I'm more senior, so therefore I can't ask a junior person that question because my ego is going to hurt. Like, it's so multifaceted. But look, to answer your question and not just get out of answering it, I think there are absolutely at least one or two things that people need to do to be an effective listener. And the first is to just be open to what's being said, right? Have no barriers up. Leave all the defensiveness at home, right? Just, if you're going to ask a question or if someone's going to make a statement to you or at you, you need to be able to take a breath and just be open to what is being said. As soon as you interject or put up the defense mechanisms or try to explain why it is they're wrong, you're not listening anymore. So that openness is, again, probably easier said than done, but, bit of practice might make perfect. And then the second thing, which I think helps with openness, but absolutely helps with listening, is this idea of equanimity. And more than a word, this is a practice. This is a muscle that you can build over time. And equanimity is simply, or the simplest definition I've heard is to be unaffected by what's happening. So it's about caring, but not allowing that care to destroy you or destroy somebody else. It's just about being calm, about being, again, open, but not latching on to what someone's saying and also not pushing it away, right? It's this real neutrality of say whatever it is you need to say, and I'm going to listen and I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to absorb that. And back to the point about time, whatever you say to me, I might need to take that away, right? I might not be able to give you the response you need right now. But you know what? I value everything you've just said to me. And, give me an hour and we'll come back and we'll resume this conversation, because if I react, if I let my reflexes take over, again, I'm not listening, I'm not processing, I'm working out how I'm going to fight.
I really love that. Open, you talk about the practice of curiosity, equanimity. These are all themes within the book. There's so much valuable content, and of course, I have to shout out the first of the practices for effective leadership being asking questions. I still think it's one of the reasons why I'll never be unemployed. Well, just in the next in the next decade anyway, because it really is, when someone's genuinely curious. And of course, you bring out the Ted Lasso in the book, which made me eternally happy to read that and grateful. Understanding the why behind someone's motivation is absolutely critical, and you can't do that unless you ask questions. So, Charles, we've been talking a lot about leadership. How does coaching fit in?
Yeah, it's a great question coming from a coach extraordinaire. This is one of the areas that I'm quite happy to be very, very fluid in my thoughts and beliefs and actions around this, because you mentioned it earlier about coaching and mentoring and leadership and followership and all of these things exist as a part of the same system. Add to that advisory, facilitation, what else? Consultancy, yeah.
Trainer.
Yeah. So it's all a part of a system. And I think someone who I'm actually struggling here because my immediate response to a question like this would ordinarily be, hey, Emma, what do you think? Where does coaching... So I'm actually struggling just to answer the question. But again, I'm just letting you know that my natural approach to these sort of questions is to just mirror it back.
I said you were the master of mirroring. I did.
Yeah. So, look, I think someone who is absolutely coaching inclined will say, okay, coaching is the umbrella term for all the other things. Someone who's mentor inclined will go, look, mentoring is the umbrella term for all the other things. Someone who's leadership inclined, such as me, I'll put leadership up the top and say all the other things sit under leadership. So, but at the end of the day, I don't think it matters, right? Because it's a system of parts, and those parts have to work together for someone to be effective in what they do. And I going back to your lovely introduction, I practice leadership, I practice mentoring, I practice coaching, I practice advisory, I practice consultancy, and I have definitions of all of those for me, so I know which one I'm doing and when. And I think the coaching mentoring one is a really interesting one. But for me, and again, I don't mind being right, wrong, or otherwise on this, but it's the way I'd explain it to somebody if they asked me. Coaching involves a lot more questions, right? And eliciting the answers from the person who is being coached, whereas mentoring is a lot more telling and a lot more sharing of experiences of what worked for me or for others in a similar situation. So when I put those when I compare coaching and mentoring, it's almost about the speed at which it happens. Coaching's a lot slower, but it also, I think, has it sticks, right? It has a lot more longevity. Mentoring is a lot of storytelling, and the stories will hit or they won't hit. It's a lot faster, but it doesn't necessarily seep into a person's being or consciousness, and therefore doesn't necessarily have the longevity. Or it does, so long as the mentoring relationship continues to exist. Whereas I think with coaching, a really great coach can step out of the relationship, and that the person they were coaching is just going to keep getting better and better and better because of all the tools that they were given along the way. So again, I'm getting stuck into sort of some semantics there, but yeah, it's sort of where I start everything. What does it mean to you? What do you need? What's important to you right now? Do you want to move quickly, slowly? Do you want lasting results? Do you want quick wins? Like, you tell me, and then we'll work out what that looks like. And then call it whatever you want, because that actually becomes relevant.
Yep.
Right? It just becomes about the practices.
And again, it's the reason I didn't call my book the top 10 chapters of the world's best coaches. Also of the ethos that they are practices. It's a daily practice. You don't say leadership, yeah, I do that, tick the box. Coaching, yeah, I do that. And one of your page 53 here, get to know your people. I just want to read out a bunch of great questions for potential listeners to add to their toolkit. So you've got here, what are your career aspirations? What are they trying to achieve in their job or in their professional life? Why are they in the job they're in? What inspires them at work? How can you, as a leader, fit into all of this? Or any of it, I would add. How do you want to be led? What do you need from me? How can I support you or them? How can you help them achieve what they want to? They're such basic questions, yet so often when I do go into companies, I'm like, have you got a little, I call it a little blueprint on each of your team members? And imagine having some questions in your toolkit to know what they need from you so you can individualize your leadership. And obviously you're right. What's my umbrella? My umbrella is coach, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and I do have a new word, Charles. It's called co-touring. Coach first, mentor second, just depending on time. I thought you'd like that one.
Coach.
Uh-huh.
Ooh,
Co-tour.
love it.
Co-tour. Yeah. Because, again, it
Love
is
it.
it's all under the leadership umbrella. I think that's why your book really resonated. All right. It's time for our holy grail question of coaching, and that is in 1 to a maximum of 3 words. What do you think makes a great
Whoa.
coach?
Ask, listen, equanimity.
And how cool that we've sort of lived and breathed those themes in this conversation. Like we've spoke about every
I
single
think
one
so,
of those.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not just it's something that
Yeah.
that you are living and breathing. And I think one last thing I want to bring up, and I know this whole podcast has been about the book, but it really did hit me, especially the difference between empathy and compassion. Again, I know it, but until you read it or it hits you in the forehead, you're like, oh, that's so clear. What you have the ability to do, Charles, is make the difficult easy. And people say that about my workshops as well, that it's simple, relatable, practical, and when you strip it back, it makes total sense. So talk to us about empathy and compassion as it relates to leadership and coaching.
Yeah. And again, thank you for those very kind words. And look, before I answer the question, I think you've summarized something that I was aiming to do in the book, and hopefully others will feel the same way as they read it. I don't believe for a second that anything in the book is revolutionary. I don't necessarily think that I would have been the first person to say these things. But what I was trying to do was document the obvious, or document what people fundamentally already know but have never seen it in words or heard it in words, or to just give it some really simple structure. Yeah, thank you for noticing that, because that I think it really is the aim. The aim of this particular book is to be super accessible for anyone at any stage of their career, and to really frame up the things that they already feel and know. But look, getting back to empathy and compassion, again, when I sat down and started, really deep thinking about these words and what they were, it dawned on me very quickly that empathy is something that a person feels. It's a deep-seated feeling for where someone else is at, or what they're going through, how they're feeling, how their energy is being affected, all the things. And I'm not sure if I'm as bold in the book to say that empathy on its own is useless, because it's something that you're holding on to, whereas empathy shown or demonstrated is compassion. So the two actually have to go together. There's just so much focus in the leadership world on empathy, and empathy being leadership and leadership being empathy. And it's like, I don't disagree with that, but that's only half the picture, because you can be as empathic or empathetic, depending on which way you like to say the word, as you like. But if that doesn't show up for the person that you've got empathy for, then what's the point, right? All you're doing is suffering in silence, right? You're taking on someone else's feelings. You're feeling a certain way about somebody else's situation, and you're suffering with it. So yeah, the demonstration of empathy, at least effective empathy, is compassion. For some people, they might demonstrate their empathy in a completely different way, but I don't necessarily think that would be an effective way of demonstrating it.
They use their empathy to show compassion. I love, if empathy is described as an inner feeling, then compassion needs to be its outward expression. So I just love to,
Yeah.
just that alone summarizes exactly what you just said. You live and breathe both, my friend. And
Thank you.
even the colors are super cool. I'm a big fan of your work, and
Thank
I
you.
always have been and always will be. And off air, by the way, we were talking about our formal outfits, and we're thinking about doing a reenactment, because Charles, from the first moment I saw you, you've always been just a unique wonder in the world, and may you continue to spread that throughout leadership, throughout coaching circles, anyone that has just the honor and pleasure of being in your orbit. And I'm very grateful that I'm one of those people. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
your everything. Thank you for your everything. I appreciate you so much. And yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Emma. And right back at you. Thank you.
And thanks everyone for listening.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show.